My brother fired me in front of the entire company, board members, managers, employees, everyone. He called me a liability, a mistake. And then security escorted me out like I was nothing. The only problem, he had absolutely no idea that I owned the company. Not partially, not secretly invested. I mean majority shareholder, final authority, owner. And when the board meeting happened 3 days later, everything he built his identity on collapsed in less than 5 minutes. But before I tell you how that meeting ended his career, let me ask you something. Have you ever spent your entire life being treated like the lesser sibling? Like no matter what you achieved, someone else always got the credit? Because that's exactly what my life was like growing up with my brother. And the worst part, the company he was so proud of running only existed because of me. My name is Daniel Carter. And if you're watching this right now, let me ask you something. Have you ever worked your entire life to prove yourself, only to realize the people closest to you never believed in you in the first place? Because that was my childhood. Growing up, there were two versions of success in my family. My brother Jason, and everyone else. Jason was the golden child, the future leader, the one my parents told relatives about at every holiday dinner. Meanwhile, I was the quiet one, the backup plan, the kid they assumed would fail. Jason got the praise, Jason got the attention, Jason got the expectations, and I got something else. Freedom. Freedom to be underestimated. Freedom to move in silence. Freedom to build something nobody saw coming. But I'm getting ahead of myself, because the real story starts the day our father died. That was the day everything changed. Our father built Carter Technologies from nothing, a tiny startup, in our garage when we were kids. I remember watching him solder circuit boards at the kitchen table. Back then, it was just an idea, a dream. But by the time I finished college, that dream had turned into a company worth hundreds of millions. Naturally, everyone assumed Jason would take over. He was charismatic, confident, loud, the kind of guy investors loved, the kind of guy who walked into rooms like he already owned them. And technically, he did at least. That's what he believed, because when our father passed away, Jason became CEO. Everyone applauded the decision. Family, investors, employees, even the media called it a natural transition of leadership. But there was one thing nobody realized, something buried deep inside the ownership documents, something my father had done quietly years earlier, and I didn't fully understand it myself until months later. You see, when our father expanded the company during a financial crisis, he needed emergency capital. Investors were hesitant. Banks refused. So he turned to the one person who believed in him. Me. At the time I was running a small investment firm. Nothing huge, but big enough to help. I loaned the company money when nobody else would, and my father insisted on doing it properly. Contracts, equity, ownership, percentages, legal protections. At the time it felt unnecessary. He was my father. Why would I need protection from my own family? But he insisted. Business is business, Daniel, he told me. And when the paperwork was finished, something interesting happened. My loan converted into shares. A lot of shares. More than Jason had. More than any investor. More than the board. But the structure was silent. No public announcement. No press release. No drama. On paper, Jason was CEO, but in reality, I owned the company, and for years, I never told him. Why? Simple. Because Jason loved power more than responsibility. He loved being the face of success. The interviews, the magazine covers, the conference speeches, and honestly, I didn't care. I wasn't interested in fame. I had my own businesses, my own investments, my own life. So I stayed invisible, a silent majority shareholder, watching, waiting, trusting that Jason would run the company well. For years, it worked. The company grew. Revenue exploded. And Jason became exactly what he always wanted to be, a respected CEO. But success does strange things to people. It makes some people humble and others dangerous. Jason became the second kind. The power got to him. Employees started leaving, executives resigned quietly, decisions became reckless. But the real breaking point came the day I decided to visit the office, not as the owner, just as myself, Jason's younger brother, and that was the day everything exploded. The company headquarters was massive, 3 glass towers in downtown Chicago. Jason loved showing it off. I hadn't visited in almost a year. So I decided to drop by. No announcement. No meeting scheduled. Just a simple visit. What happened next shocked me, because the moment Jason saw me, his face changed. Not excitement, not surprise, annoyance, like I was an inconvenience. Daniel, he said loudly, what are you doing here? The entire office looked over. I smiled. Just visiting. Jason laughed, but it wasn't friendly. Visiting? He repeated. This isn't a family barbecue. People started whispering. I felt the tension immediately. But what he said next, I'll never forget. You know what your problem is? Jason said. You always think you're part of this company. The room went silent. He stepped closer. You're not. And then, in front of nearly 50 employees, my brother said the words that changed everything. Security. A guard approached. Jason pointed directly at me. Remove him from the building. Someone in the room gasped. Jason continued. And make sure he doesn't come back. For a moment, I just stood there. Not angry. Not shocked. Just realizing something. Jason had absolutely no idea who I really was. And that's when everything changed. Outside the building, the security guard apologized. Sorry, sir, he said quietly. I was just doing my job. I nodded. No problem. Then I got into my car and made one phone call. The company lawyer answered immediately. Daniel? I think it's time, I told him. There was a long pause. Are you sure? I looked back at the glass towers behind me. My brother's empire. Schedule a shareholder meeting. Another pause. The board won't like surprises. I smiled. They don't have a choice, because what Jason didn't understand was that majority ownership has power. Real power. Power that doesn't shout. Power that signs documents. Power that ends careers quietly. And 3 days later, that power walked into the boardroom. The boardroom was full. Executives. Investors. Lawyers. Jason sat at the head of the table, confident, relaxed, completely unaware of what was about to happen. When I walked in, his smile disappeared. What is he doing here? Jason asked. One of the board members cleared his throat. Daniel requested the meeting. Jason laughed. Requested. The lawyer stood up. No. He corrected. He called it. Jason frowned. Since when does Daniel have that authority? The lawyer slid a document across the table. Jason read the first line. And everything changed. His face turned white. He looked up slowly. This isn't possible. The lawyer spoke calmly. Mr. Carter owns 52% of Carter Technologies. The room exploded with whispers. Jason stared at me. You knew? He asked. I nodded. For years. His voice shook. Why didn't you tell me? I leaned forward, because I wanted to see the kind of leader you'd become without knowing. Silence filled the room. Then, the chairman spoke. We are voting on a leadership change. Jason stood up. You can't do this. But the vote happened anyway. One by one. Hands raised. Decisions made. And within minutes, Jason Carter was no longer CEO. I didn't celebrate. I didn't humiliate him. I didn't even smile. Because revenge was never the goal. Respect was. After the meeting, Jason approached me. For the first time in our lives. He looked small. I didn't know he said quietly. I know, I replied. And that was the problem. Sometimes the people who hurt you most aren't evil. They're just convinced you'll always stay beneath them. Until one day, they realize the person they ignored was the one holding the power all along. So let me ask you something. If you were in my position, would you have done the same thing? Or would you have forgiven him? Because success teaches you a lot about money. But the most important lesson I ever learned was this. You don't need revenge to prove your worth. You just need the courage to stop letting people decide it for you.